you can't go back on them. Alright, so passive voice. The first thing, I really should prepare more for class. Shut up! So first thing, you got the rules in the book. Now, some teachers will, open your books, let's read through the rules. What's that? Boring. Kids are already asleep. Alright? So, my kids do not open their books. I might not even give them their books. Right? There's no need to have their books. They're not going to do anything with them, so don't even give them. Or if they do, they need to learn not to open them. So my kids know I give out the books stay in front of them. If they open it, I'm like, did I say open your books? Don't open them, right? Alright, so passive voice. So first thing I would do, see, my co-teacher doesn't help me. Even making sure my pens work. I'm such a poor teacher. All alone in this world. I'm gonna get so killed later. I've got her growling at the back and I've got him growling at the front. Alright, so passive voice. So, they don't know what that means, they don't know, they have no idea what it means. Alright, so why do we use passive voice? Can anybody tell me first of all? Come on, why do we use passive voice?
So if something happened to someone, that it was not that person or thing making it happen, it happened to.
Right, but you've just lost the kids. Simplify it. Emphasis. Right? Emphasis. Passive voice is about swapping emphasis. Anytime you explain to your kids, again, it all depends on their levels and age. What do they understand? Do they understand emphasis? No, they don't. So, I always use a simple sentence to start with. My sentences never change, by the way, in like 15 years. I always have jokes with my students, okay? Again, keep in the line. The biggest joke is, I hate children. Right? I hate them. They're nasty. They're disgusting. Ugh. I love dogs. Some. And cats. Right? So often I will make my sentences like that. If you forget your homework, what will happen? Teacher Lisa will kill us. There you go. Any child you ask that's been taught by me, they can answer these questions. They know there's some truth, but it's funny.
Some truth.
Of course there's some truth. They know what I'm like. Right? So, if you're starting off with passive voice in the beginning, maybe keep it... My hand hurts. Present tense. Alright? So then I read it. Teacher Lisa kills a student. Right? What am I emphasizing? What is the most important? Teacher Lisa kills a student. Hopefully they will get, Teacher Lisa is the most important. Teacher Lisa is always the most important. Right? Again, just keep light banner, they're paying attention. Alright? So Teacher Lisa kills a student. Teacher Lisa is the what? The teacher. What else? What kind of word is it? Subject. Alright? I only started doing this a few years ago actually, because Michael does it. So I copied him. Seriously. When I first started teaching, this is all about teaching. Your teaching skills will grow with your teaching. The way you do things, you learn from everybody. How I teach will not suit Teacher Michael. How Teacher Michael teaches does not suit me. We all have our ways, and you just got to find what works for you. But what we all agree on is finding, control and respect. If you have that, everything will fit in. Simplify it. So, Teacher Lisa is the subject. So, what are the students? Object. Alright? Okay. So, Teacher Lisa kills the student. The most important thing in this sentence is
Teacher Lisa.
Teacher Lisa. Alright, but now we want to make the student important. Alright, so now we want to make the main subject, the main idea, the emphasis. You've just taught them a new word. Alright, if they didn't know it from first grade all the way up, keep saying the word, they should remember it. So, emphasis on the student. So what do we do? Yeah. Passive voice is actually all about steps. Teach them the steps, they'll remember it. They're not going to remember all the grammar jargon of, what's going on, but they remember steps. Okay? But they also need to know why. Right? We want to make the student the most important. Okay, so the student, okay, now, what tense are we using? Present simple. Alright, present simple. So, then I go over here, so I'm saying, if we want to change to present simple, you bite my foot and I'm going to kill you. Alright, so for present simple is are and then the PP. Okay? So, a student, how many subjects we got? How many we got? One. Okay, we've only got one. So, he, she, it. So, is. Okay? And then we've got to add in the by. So, who killed the student?
Teacher Lisa.
Alright, so now, a student is killed by Teacher Lisa. Where's the emphasis?
Student.
Alright, so you've got to do that when you talk. So this is breaking it down really simply. So then you go on to another one. So I will do a couple of sentences on the board to show them again. Different words, especially if, catches, because catches changes to caught, right, the PP. Beginning of the semester, my kids will all have this, no matter what grade. Alright, so they can go through. It stays under their desk, they take it home, they die. When it comes to, going through them, might learn some new words. Then we, in the beginning, it's only the first two. Bring brought, buy bought, deal dealt. I will go through this. There's no books, there's no nothing, we will do this. Other grammar, this one's a little bit more difficult, but with this class I would be able to do it. So, I would write some examples on the board, depending on what we're learning today, and they will all be present tense. Again, make them sentences, use student names, use book names, make it interesting for them. They want to say the sentence, okay? My kids love saying this, Tommy ate a cockroach. A cockroach was eaten by Tommy. Make them say it in that way. You'll get more energetic students that will use that. Tommy ate a cockroach. Whatever. So make them say it. So do it yourself, the answer. Then write the sentences and pick students to make the answer. If they get it wrong, you go, huh? What? Really? Is that the answer? Why? Until they get it right. Other students, do not let students call out. If you are talking to a student and that student's giving you your answer, he or she gives you the answer. Do not let anybody else override them. It's not fair. They wait their turn. Again, I will do things, if a kid can't control himself, that's how he stands up. He puts his hand, I'm not touching it. And if they can, then try and get them to make sentences. As I said, passive voice is a little bit more difficult for them to think on the spot. I keep using Diana and Gorillas because that's in my head right now. If you have been, you know, reading Diana and Gorillas or any other book that you're reading, or Merlin, like we use Merlin, so, you know, what did Merlin do? You know, what happened or whatever, and they try to think of sentences. Oh, the dragon was killed by Merlin. You know, things like that. So they can try to make sentences using things that they've got in their head. You know? Or if it's easier, I'll say just make a sentence. Now try and change it. That might come easier. Alright, so make a sentence. Teacher Lisa kills students. Okay, how do we change that? Alright, so any way that you can get across, as I said, each class will be different. Don't be afraid also, you know, for foreign teachers that need to know, don't be afraid. If it's not working, stop. You know, don't keep trying. Give up, move on. Something else will work. You know, if you've asked them all to make sentences, it's not working, fine. You know, grab a book. You know, they're going to do this in a minute, but just start reading to them then. You know, he is delivering the letters. The letters are being delivered by him. Alright, so if they can't make the sentences themselves, listen, not necessarily on the board. Alright, because it's about listening as well as writing. So that's what I'll do first for, you know, between 30 minutes and an hour. Will be completely on the board, oral work, making sentences, stuff like that. As I said, it depends on the level of the students. Okay, how long this will go on for. This class doesn't need so much time. Then we open up the book. Open up the book. I will go through some of these explanations, but not all of them, because, you know, we put an agent equals a person who does the action into the passive sentence only if it adds information. And when the agent is unknown and unimportant, huh? Right? Even I have to read that sentence 3 or 4 times before I'm like, okay, that's what it's talking about. If it's not important, we don't include it. Right? So then we go through the not important. Someone kills a student. Do we know who killed the student? No. So do we care?
No.
No. So do we need to write it? No. Alright? Again, simple language. Repeating things. You know, do we know? No. Do we care? No. Do we need to write it? No. Alright, so they understand. Police. So this would change to, alright, police arrest students. Can anybody else arrest a student? No. Can you go outside and put handcuffs on a student? No. So, if I write it and don't write it, do you still understand that it's the police that arrested the student? Yes. So we don't need it. So explain to them why we don't need it. You know, the book will tell you some things like the package was delivered by the mail carrier. And if you've got really smart kids and you say, can anybody else deliver a package? Yes. UBS. Fine. Alright, fine. We need, you feel we need it, then we need it. You know? Why not? If they can give you that answer, then fine. You know, English is another thing that's very difficult in Taiwan because you have your tests in Chinese school that say, this is the answer. No. English is changing all the time. You know, constantly. Americans bastardize our language. Are you American? Anyway. So, you know, it's changing all the time, you know. But it makes no difference, you know, if you say the postman delivered the letter was delivered by the postman. It's still correct. You know, if you don't need to know it was the postman, then fine, don't include it. But with this one, We need it. We need to know that it was Teacher Lisa. Because you all need to understand that you don't mess around, otherwise this happens. Right? You know, the same thing happens, but if it's someone, we really don't care. Where do we use passive voice? Where's the main place that we use passive voice? Don't tell them. See, this is what I mean about participation with students that don't really know. Come on, think. Where do we use passive voice the most? You would be so damaged. You would be standing up. Do you know?
The news?
Yes. Candy. Newspapers, right? Articles. They're not going to write, you know, the Queen opened, you know, it's, the ship was, how do you say that? Set off by the Queen. You know, that's the most important thing. That's what happened. So, newspaper articles, the news, they will cut it down. Okay? Which is in the book. Not this one. Good, Lisa. Huh?
Book,
No, no, no.
Book 3.
Is it the other one?
Yeah, book 3. That's your name.
Ah, so this one's what I'm supposed to be teaching? See? Organization. Right, so if you had it here, right, titles. Right? If teachers have time, go online. You know, type up some titles, what's happening in the news right now. If teachers have time, you know, Google news for kids. You know, as I said, dumb everything down. Right? You know, what you teach adults, what you talk to adults about is not going to be the same thing as you talk to children about. Alright, so, you know, you can Google news for kids and get some titles and change them around. So, that's where we use it the main time, most of the time. But it's also in reading as well. So after I've done this, we go on to the book. I'll read some of these. New teachers need to prepare. Older teachers should prepare. So, as I just did, if you caught my mistake, I explained all this, and then I went through this and went, oh, no subject. Right, so no subjects. And then I just remembered, yeah, I've also got to teach that. That's going to come up in this unit. Alright, so then I'll go back and go over that with no subjects. Alright, but teachers should prepare and be ready for that. So we'll go through some of it. We'll go through, because this is 4, sorry, so you're doing 3, I'm doing 4, this is my class. So we'll go through all of the tenses. Okay? So on the board, I've just done the basic to remind, because if I've got to book 4, they've already done this at least once, probably twice. So reminder, then we go through the tenses, then we make more sentences. So I try and choose a word that I can change to all of the tenses and go through. Right, what about this tense? What about that tense? And I will write the was, were, has, have, been on here, and it will stay on there when we do the exercises. So that will stay on there. So again, depending, so then we go through the book. So exercise 1, again, as I said before, depending on their level, this class, I would tell them to write exercise 1 to exercise 4. Straight away. Off you go. They write it, swap books. I don't have to time this class. They swap books, pencils, we go through it. If they make a mistake, what tense is it? Present tense. How many people? 2. What should we use? Are. Okay. Constant repetition. Constant asking them to give you the answer. It is 2 people. You should use are. They're not going to listen. They're not going to learn. They just copy what you say. Constantly asking them questions. Why? Highlight. Right? Howard is a very bad example. Throw his book away. Yes! My Patrick. don't have favorites. I do. Actually, he's not one of the smartest kids, he's just so funny. He asks the most dumbest questions ever. Anyway, but again, you know, with Patrick, he sits there because he's got zero concentration. He has jumped a few levels, so he's not as quick as the other students in my class, but he constantly wants to know. And so he constantly asks questions. And it can be very annoying to teacher Zoe. Not to me, because I have the patience of an angel. So you should answer his questions as much as possible. Okay? I do not spell for my kids, by the way. Main reason, I can't spell. My spelling is awful. So, but, you know, the reason my spelling is awful is because I wasn't taught to keep using a dictionary, as far as I'm concerned. So, you know, my kids will say, how do you spell this? Do I look like a dictionary? No. And they go over here and they get the dictionary and they look for the word. You know, so they learn by looking up the words. So for anything like that, they will learn. So he likes to ask, but he highlights. He's a good boy. He's probably not highlighted the right words, but gotta love him. Oh, he highlighted that lesson, but not the lesson I want. Oh, I don't like my kids anymore. Where am I? 12.
You can tell them the joke. What's the capital in England?
Oh, I gotta love my kids. Yeah, so outside thinking outside the box. Encourage it. He's hilarious in class. So we're doing something or other in class, and I said, you know, what's the capital of London? And so Patrick said, L.
Capital of London or England?
England.
Oh, England, sorry. Yeah. No, E, sorry, yes. What's the capital of England? Yeah. E. Yeah! But no! You know. Not so wrong, but you know. Another one of my kids could make the rain stop. She opens her hands and she had a dream. And she told one of my kids her dream, and the other kid told me. So apparently when she goes outside in her dream, she can stand outside, and if she does this, the rain starts. And if she does that, the rain stops. So when it's bad weather, we're like, Catherine, go stop the rain! Oh, teacher! Anyway, yes, passive voice. My lovely child has not highlighted. Anyway, I tried to... did it with this one, infinitives. Highlight keywords. Okay, so in a passive voice sentence, it would be this one. Alright, that would be my keyword, first of all. What tense is it? So then they know what tense are we going to use. Okay? Second thing, because this is one of the biggest mistakes they will make. You're still alive. Alright, so teacher Lisa kills students. Right? So, kills. One person, he, she, plus S. Right? When they change it, they will write it correctly, but they're still on this. So they'll do this. Okay? So that's another thing you got to emphasize. How many? Alright? It's gone from singular to plural. Most of the time in the beginning they will make this mistake. Okay? So when they change it, they get to here, they should highlight this word. So they know singular or plural change to there. Alright, so it's choosing, because when you tell kids to highlight, they highlight the whole sentence. Or they highlight the wrong words. So when we go through it, which words should you have highlighted? And another thing that kids do that really bugs me, they highlight after they've written the answer. The point of that is to make your book look pretty. So yes, it's like highlight first, then write the answer. Okay, so you can go through an exercise and highlight it first, then write the answers. Because they do have a habit of writing the answers, then they go all the way back and they go and highlight everything. Which they could find their mistakes, which is okay. Not often they don't. So doing things like this. Alright, then we go through the book, as I said, we swap. Be aware of your students at all times if they're looking bored. For my upstairs class, I have to teach for 3 hours. You cannot teach grammar for 3 hours. You can. You won't have a class left, and their work will be. So you got to mix it up. You know, start with this, go to that, go back to this, go back to that, mix it up. They actually say the attention span is 30 minutes. So that's why I say, you know, do this, do some writing. Okay, let's go back, break time, come back, let's go through it again. Every time we start a new lesson, so if I do this on Monday, and then the next Monday I'm doing the same thing, we don't just open our books and go. We go straight back to doing this again. We do this at the beginning of every single time we learn the grammar. Maybe in a different way, different sentences, whatever, but to get them going. Before worksheets, before tests, we go back. And now that this is what I would do in the beginning, now I ask them. Learning passive voice. Give me a normal sentence. They give me a normal sentence. What's this? The subject. What's that? The object. What's the verb? That one. So then they tell me. Alright, so what do I do now? Oh. Object to the front. Then what do? I usually do this. Object to the front, subject to the end. And then we fill in the middle. Depends on your class if they can get it. Singular or plural, tense, by, whom. Becomes more difficult when you get to, you've got to add in times, places, things like that, where they go. Alright, but you work through the sentences. You'll only get that when you go through the grammar book and you work through. Why is that? Times go at the end. Places go before time. Yes. You go to school at, yes. Places go before time. So working through it with your kids, giving them reasons. Okay, so I'll do it like this, go through the book. And then I have multiple worksheets. Steal my worksheets and I will cry. If you find a mistake, be quiet. That's another thing, typing. When you're doing it, you know, quite often you will make mistakes. You can give points to your kids for making mistakes, you know, for finding your mistake. You want one? Zoe, do you need one? No. You know, another thing that I would do, actually teacher Zoe's stapled this the wrong way, and that's because I didn't tell her to do it. So, I would usually start off with this one. Either multiple choice or this kind of one. Just filling in the words, so the rest of the sentence is there. Okay? So it's simpler. Alright, so I would usually start off with a simpler version, multiple choice. And by the way, foreign teachers, Google. There are hundreds of worksheets online that you can use for very simple, especially multiple choice. I usually copy paste those. You know, passive voice practice, it comes up all these multiple choice ones, you just copy and paste and print. So either multiple choice or these kind of ones I'll start with, and they need to fill in and highlight. Again, if they can find my mistake. My kids don't get prizes for that, they just get told that if they make a mistake, God help them. Finding my mistakes, they need to find their own mistakes. So we go through that one. The second one I would do is the sentences. Alright, passive voice review, changing the sentences. Can't remember if I've done this on this one or not. Always, I wrote it at the top of this one here. You can look through this later. Rewrite the sentences in the passive. Do not change the meaning. Alright, something they've got to learn to do. Don't leave out the time. Don't leave out the place. Don't change the meaning. If they left out the place, that means it's not the same meaning as the sentence before. Okay, so, you know, get them trained on doing that, because they lose points on our test, but they also in school tests. They have to remember to put all the information in. Once you've done these ones, I don't know if I've included this in there, then you start swapping them up in an exercise. You have some that are already passive that are going to be changed back to active, and active that are going to be changed to passive, but you don't tell them where they are. Okay, so that they've got to look at those sentences and realize, are they active, are they passive, and change them themselves. Alright, and then finally, this can be, for some kids, very easy, and this can be for some kids very difficult. Corrections. Right? Looking at that sentence, where is the mistake, highlighting the mistake, writing the correct answer. So this is just, you know, 3 or 4 different ways to do worksheets. They shouldn't always be the same kind of worksheets. I have hundreds of worksheets, but again, it depends on the class. If the class have got it, you really don't need to bombard them with too many worksheets. If they haven't got it, then you need to. But I will also, if I'm teaching grammar today, at the end of grammar, I might give them a writing worksheet. Because when something's in their mind, of course, when they do the worksheet, it's going to be good. But if they've just learned grammar, now I throw last week's writing in. Can they remember what we did? Can their mind switch around and see what they can do? It's about learning to switch around. So the grammar, I might give them at the beginning of Friday. So we come into class, we talk about it a little, hand out the worksheets, right, do that. Finish the worksheet and go on to reading. It doesn't have to always follow, you know, today is all about grammar. Just throw it in there all over the place. If you remember when you're doing reading, how can I make this sentence into passive voice when they're reading the book? If you remember to do it. I don't always. So it's about changing it up. Having the worksheets prepared in different ways. As I said, you know, if your class is slower, then you want to start with multiple choice and fill-ins. Right? Don't start too lengthy. Also, if their attention span is 0 or minus, multiple choice is quick. Time them. You know, multiple choices should take 5-10 minutes maximum. Don't give them 30 minutes to do multiple choice. They will take 30 minutes to do multiple choice, depending on their class. This class will take 2 minutes. So time them. Done, swap. The teacher, I haven't finished. Then you lose points. Not my fault. This is your time. This is when you got to finish. That's it. You knew what it was. If they can finish, you can finish. Right? Guess if you have to, but finish. So, different ways of doing it. You may not need all of the worksheets. You know, even in the worksheets, use things they know. I will throw in teachers' names. You know, everybody here knows me, Teacher Zoe, and Teacher Michael. So, you know, I will throw in those names into the book. Teacher Haley is my niece, so I throw her in as well. Very badly. She always does something bad. The kids' names, but then you've got to keep them up. And also, you know, if co-teachers, if you are co-teachers as well as managers, a good idea, ladies, is to keep your teachers' worksheets. If they don't, my teachers wouldn't dare, because I have. Let sleeping dogs lie. High school. I have 4 of these upstairs, and my USBs, and my home computer. Keep them, you know, because the times you will go back and you will teach the same kind of grammar again and again, you can bring it out. It's much better if you've got it on the computer, because you can go straight in and change students' names and stuff like that. It saves you a lot of work if you're teaching a long time. If your co-teachers, you know, can save it on the computer or whatever, and you're a foreign teacher, ask your foreign teacher, because your foreign teacher puts the time into making these worksheets. Okay? So it's their work. Ask them if you can keep it. Because maybe you will not be with that foreign teacher next year, you will be on your own, and maybe you need some questions that you can put into weekly tests, you know, to help you out. Right? But, again, respect. Talk to your teacher. Michael writes all of his tests. I type, he writes. So his co-teacher types all of his tests. And so she's got all of his tests. Michael doesn't keep anything. Michael is extremely good at writing sentences and stories and stuff like that. It takes me a while to sort of get into it, but Michael is very good at that, so he doesn't mind writing and writing and writing and writing. So he's co-teacher, and then I steal. Because it's saved on the computer and he has no idea. He doesn't mind, he uses my DVDs. Yeah, so basically, that's it for me to, you know, I can passive voice how I would do it going through, you know the rules. It's basically making it simple for the kids to understand at all times. Very rarely, writing book or grammar, will I go through the instructions. It's too wordy, they don't understand it, they don't want to understand it. You gotta give them, why do we use past tense? Because we're talking about yesterday. I need to know the difference between if you're talking about yesterday and if you're talking about tomorrow. Tell them why we have these grammars. Maybe you have to look it up first of all to find out why. Teacher Michael is going to be teaching, you know, could, would, might, the modal verbs, which is one of the most evil points of grammar ever. Because we use them all, and depending on how you speak. So, you know, another thing that me and Michael will also do is we say, you know, this is what you must write in the test, but you can say this. You know, again, older children understand this. I also find, you know, teachers telling first grade, you got to write this in the test, but you can also say da-da-da-da-da. And 99 times out of 100, they will write the wrong way in their test. Right? You build up to that. As you build up grammar, as you build up reading, as you build up anything, you build up the knowledge of the language, what they need to know. I would never tell a first grade, you know, you can do it this way in talking, but when you do a test, in the first grade, this is how you do it, this is how we do it. Second grade, okay, sometimes you can say this. Third grade, right, we can do this and do that, but remember, you know, so build it up. Some teachers may disagree with me and say first grade, straight away tell them. They're learning too much, as far as I'm concerned. They're learning Chinese, they're learning math, they're learning science, they're learning English. You know, they're not just coming here. So, building their blocks up. You don't make a house, you know, straight from putting bricks on earth. It'll sink. Do you have any questions? Really? Nothing? I don't want, you know, personally, I know Mr. Chen will disagree with me. When he sees the video, he's going to have a heart attack. For something like passive voice, you really don't need anything more than this. And you add to it and you change it with the tenses each time you build up. But you will teach the basics, keep to basics. And then the books come in. But again, remember your students. If they haven't learned passive voice for over a year, go back to basics. Even though your book is telling you to teach them the past tense, go back to present tense. Go through it again. When I teach passive voice, not passive voice, present perfect, God, I hate that. If I teach present perfect, I go all the way back and I go present tense. When do we use it? What are the key words? What are the sentences? Then I go past tense. When do we use it? Yesterday, last week, ago. Key words. How do we change the verbs? Irregular verbs. Then I go present continuous, da, 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 da. Past continuous, da, 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 da. I go through all of the tenses we've learned. Then I go to passive. Reminding them. Every single time I teach a new tense, I go through them all. Why? Why we do it like this? Right? And then present perfect starts from before and it continues until now. Past tense, it has stopped. Right, it's dead, it's gone, it's over, it's finished. Present perfect hasn't finished yet. It still continues. Or we don't know when it happened. And we give the reasons. But going back, reminding them. Right? It's about constant use. I always tell my parents when I have parents meeting, English is not about memorizing all the time. It's about use. So when they're speaking at break time or whatever, if I constantly hear something, later, 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 wait a moment by any chance? You know, I hate that. So I will correct them. But if they're talking to me, I won't correct every single thing. I might correct something. Like they say, oh, last week I goes to, you go, I went to, and then let them carry on. But if you correct every single thing, shh, they shut up. So you've got to pick and choose what you need to correct. And just encourage them to talk. English is about using it. Language is about using it. I can speak Chinese because I use it every single day. And so, you know, that's why I say they must not speak Chinese. They must read through the grammar. They must read through the writing, constantly talking. And every single student, no matter how slow, how quiet they are, they still must read. Teacher needs to have the patience to let them, and they will improve. I have favorites in my class. I have kids that can read unbelievably. They will be the last ones to read. And I do have, okay, who wants to read? And people raise their hand. And I said, well, if you don't raise your hand, you know I'm going to pick you first. And so I pick the students who don't raise their hand. And then I go back to the students who do. But everybody gets a chance with everything. So when we go through the test, the grammar, the writing, everything, every single student in my class will read. All of them, every single day. And you have to do that if you've got a big class, because you just don't have time to have so much conversation. Also, what I would say, use this time. At the end of semester, this week, conversations. I will do things, especially with the older kids. Younger kids, it's a bit more difficult. You can write conversations for them, simple ones for them to memorize. But for older kids, I get them. Put them in pairs, put them in threes. They write their conversation. It's got to be using passive voice. And for every passive voice that I hear, I'll give you a point. And they're like, but teacher, I had 6 passive voice. I didn't hear it. You didn't emphasize it. I heard 3. You know, give them a point. Who gets the most points? I throw chocolates at them. Literally. You know, using conversation. Unfortunately, we only usually have time for that either just after a test or at the end of semester. Now, winter vacation is another time. Sometimes we're quite good in winter vacation. We get the slower kids back. Not always. Usually we get the real smart ones that don't need any help. Conversations. Getting them to write the conversations. Tell them what you want in there. Conditionals, if clauses, passive voice. It's all got to be in present tense. You can do it the other way around. It's all got to be in present tense. If you include past tense, you lose a point. You get a point. So the person with the highest points loses. Right? Mistakes. If I hear grammar mistakes, write it down in their conversation. You know, they add points. Well, simple things like that. Getting them to work together, getting them to act out their English using the intonations and things like that. And trying to get them to talk to each other when they do the conversations. Hi, what are you doing today? Oh, I'm going to the supermarket. Oh, really? Dude, talk to each other! It's very, you know, trying to get them. So these are all ways that I use. You know, my teaching style is not perfect, but I have a good success rate. But it is mainly understanding your class and changing your teaching style. I've had to have a very big change in the last couple of years to how I teach. Before I would, as I said, go through the grammar units very, very quickly and they write them, but now, no. You know, I have to slow everything down. Right, think of this way. Right, think of that way. Chanting, you know, getting out the first thing. You know, get everybody to stand up. Right, bring, bro. You know, number one, it wakes them up, gets them going, remembering they've got this. All things like that that you can do, and just changing it around. And managers, co-teachers, and foreign teachers working together as a team in harmony. Teachers always loves me. I'm gonna run in a minute. Right. So, no questions? Are you sure? I'm gonna run out of here, so don't think you're gonna get me after class. I'm gonna take that to the bed. Sure? Any difficulties you're having that you can give me an example and you want me to, how would I deal with that?
One thing that I encounter a lot that I've tried lots of things, I don't know how to help them with, is just speaking louder.
Yes.
There are so many students that they'll just speak so quietly that even if I'm standing almost right next to them, I can't hear them. And I've tried all different kinds of things to encourage them. I try not to yell unless I have to. Usually yelling at them doesn't work for most things anyway. Try to use positive, negative ways. I don't know. What do you think for just getting them to speak louder? I know shyness is a huge thing in this country, but
there are some, for me, there's some girls usually, there are some boys as well, that will always be quiet. And unfortunately, that's that's their way. Pairing them up, when I do role plays, I pair them up with a louder student. And I tell them, as I said in the beginning, that this is teamwork. So if she's not loud, that's your fault. Right? It's both of your fault. So that louder student needs to encourage, say it like this, say it like this. Because also shyness or quietness becomes because they feel stupid. They don't want to look stupid, sound stupid, they're not confident with their reading, stuff like that. So if they have a confident person with them, they can get better. However, with my high school kids, I've had to change that completely. I have to put two shy, quieter kids together. Because what happens with my high school kids, the louder, more confident one would do everything in the conversation. Write the conversation, say most of the lines, and do it like that. So then I have to put two quiet people together and get them to speak up. They have to do it. They have no choice. They can't rely on someone else. So it can do with age. Constant. As I said, I will, with reading through the worksheets, we read through every worksheet, every grammar, every writing, everything we read through, before or after we're going to do it, one or the other. And the quieter ones will stop, every single time. And I'll say, come on, louder, can't hear you, one more time, louder, and again, well, until I can hear you, you can keep reading. Sometimes that works, because they know they don't want to read it 10 times, so they'll get a bit louder. But there's always a degree. So that unfortunately is not a miracle, it's constant. And just getting them to do it, pairing them up with louder students to encourage them, coming up to the front of the class, sitting at the back. Microphones. I've used that in the past. If they're not calling the buses. I haven't used it for a very long time because I haven't needed it. But the microphones will work you can turn on one classroom. Right? And so you get them to have a microphone. And so they can speak into the microphone. And it's like, whoa, I can hear you, take the microphone away, say it the same. And the microphone, and the microphone, and the microphone. Make it a bit more fun so they've got to do it. It works better with younger students than it will with older students. Just don't let the louder students get the microphone. You go deaf. Any other instances? Yep.
Sorry, teacher Lisa， 我打过任何。那个你说你要学生都先念过去，然后你才教，所以新的单词也 even the new vocabulary, do you ask them to read first, try first?
Yeah.
Everything they have to try first.
Yes.
Then how about the storybook? Do you let them listen to the CD before you? No. They need
I've never used a CD. Never. Didn't even know we had one.
You do.
It's my co-teacher's phone. Chloe, don't leave me. Yeah, never. I've never used a CD, any reading. They've learned phonics. They should be able to try and sound the word out. And if they try it and they can succeed, then it's like, oh, wow. And it's like, yeah, great, good, well done. And if they can't, then you help them. But they have to try first. I will not help them if they don't try. I won't tell them the word. Never. No. Helen?
How much time do you spend on marking in class?
Not much. Yeah, not much. I might do my marking when they're writing. So if they're doing their worksheet, if they're writing a worksheet, then I'll take some grammar books and start marking the grammar books while they're writing the worksheet. I will never have kids standing at corrections. That's the only time. So如果 my corrections, I do this way, always. And another one of my pet peeves, I have lots of those, erasing and putting the answer in. I don't like that. They can't see where their mistake is when they go back to review or anything, if they do review. Rewriting the sentence one time. I also don't believe in writing out sentences 10 times, 15 times. It's a waste of time. It does not help your kids at all. It's a wasted time punishment. I would prefer they write new sentences or write an essay. But copying 15 sentences of the same thing is a waste of yours and their time. So my corrections are done like this. Okay, so the only time I will have them lining up to mark is corrections. When they come to me and they give me this, because it's usually only 3 or 4, because we've gone through it and they've circled it in pencil beforehand. So that should be minimal marking. Writing books, always after class. They're paid, so yeah. Yeah, so I will, if they're doing writing, I can mark some grammar. If they're doing worksheets, I can mark the grammar. If they're doing grammar, I can mark the worksheets and just time it to give it back. Sometimes if we're near test time, I'll have children. I don't ever have students marking my books, ever, in pen. Pencil, yes. But pen, never. Never have done, never will do. Worksheets, yes. So if we're running out of time, 考试快到了, right? And you know, don't have time for me to take them and then give them back and go through them, then they will mark it in pen. So that's how they know if they can erase or not. So we will say swap, red or blue pen. Okay, now they know, red or blue pen. Swap back, correct, give me your corrections. But we read through them, okay? So, but with writing and grammar, always pencil, and I mark them. Okay, no? Fighting, do not allow in your class. Swearing, do not allow in your class. You know, make sure you stop those straight away. They can.
I have a question.
Yes.
Because I have the same age of the student as your class here.
6, yeah.
Yeah, and then they talk about perverted things. Like when we are making a sentence, when we talk about guns, they're giggling. They're giggling, and then should I stop them or allow them?
Depends whose teacher you've got. If you've got teacher Michael, he will encourage it. I'll give you an example. Many, many years ago, we were over there for evening classes. So we had the evening classes of 45 minutes, not these kind of classes, you know. So we used to teach those, and Michael was away for a few days, and I had to take his class. And it was actually Mr. Chen's 2 sons. Andy and Tony and some others. They were 5th or 6th grade, I can't quite remember, but they were older boys, mainly boys. And so I've walked into the class, Michael's not there obviously, and I've taken over his class, and I've always been a strict teacher, so I'm like, okay, what are you doing, da 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 da. So they're all pretty relaxed, and they're like, teacher! I'm like, yes, what cup size are you? Now obviously Michael thinks that's hilarious, and even today he still thinks that's hilarious. I did not think that was hilarious, and that kid was told to be quiet and got sent out. And I said, you know, you need to learn what is funny to which you talk about cup sizes with your male teacher, fine. You say that to a female teacher, not fine. They need to learn. they're gonna say it. You know, the same with, you know, bad language or anything like that. At this age, the 6th grade, they're going to learn it. They're going to use it. But they need to know when is the right and wrong time. You know, so who should they say it about? You know, if they're talking about cup size and things like that, they, you know, should not use that towards the girls, especially in the 6th grade, because the girls are just coming out and will be very kind of like, you know, it will upset them. Change it a bit, you know, or push it back onto them, especially if it's boys. You know, make a sentence about them that's a bit, and they're like, oh, did you like it? No, don't do it then. You know, so it's going to happen, and you've got to look at the degrees. You know, what, I mean, talking about guns.
Yeah, and then sometimes we said that, you're all growing up now, and they say, oh, grow up, something like that. There's always 1 or 2 kids are making fun of those things.
Yeah, it's like, why is that? Well, you know, in that situation, both Zoe and I will say, why is that funny?
Yeah.
And they go,
yeah, but they will come back again with other things.
yeah, but then you got to repeat. If it's funny, I laugh. You know, and if it's not, then it's like, why? It's not funny. Then, you know, there will always, and another thing, you know, if you treat your 6th grade kids like young children, they will act like young children. So they need to be, you know, treated like young adults, which they are. And so certain things they need, you know, I've got a couple of gigglers in my class that giggle at, you know, absolutely nothing. And it's like, seriously. And sometimes it is funny, because when a kid starts laughing and they can't stop it, it's like, you've got to laugh. But sometimes you've got to teach them, it's not funny. Or when they repeat things again and again, I will say, you know, first time it was funny, second time it was okay, third time I'm bored. Can you think of something new? That way to sort of teach them. But it all depends. If it goes too far, like asking a teacher what her cup size is, hell no. Yeah, but that's Michael. Michael's kids know how to say, yeah, you don't even know what that is, do you? Go look it up in the dictionary. Yeah, he's seriously, it's awful. No, that again, that's his style of teaching, and his kids listen to him. His kids respect him. His kids are willing to talk to you. I can't comment on it. You know, my style is completely different. What works for the teacher, your personality. You know. Any other questions? You're all good? She's like Patrick. Or Stephen. I have kids in my class that always, when I go through the vocabulary, and I go through all the vocabulary, what does it mean, da 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 da, and at the end I'm like, does everybody understand the vocabulary? Are there any you're not sure or want me to go over? Teacher, what's it? Always Stephen. I'm like, Stephen, do you have a question? Right? Alright, if you're 100% okay, do not come up to me after the class. Okay, so I'm running. Alright, thank you, and I'll see you next week. I don't know what I'm going to